in the United States is mid to late 40s. So it's not good, especially when you have an aging population and it's getting older. So that's a challenge.
Cool. We better 2 minutes past. We better start.
Okay.
Whoa. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's Talent Pipe webinar. The title of which is, Are You Wasting 99% of Your Recruitment Marketing Budget? I am delighted to be, my name is Scott McRae, I'm the co-founder of Candidate ID, and I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Hornock, all the way from San Francisco this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Hi. So, look, let me give you a bit of context about Mark, and it's such a great bio that I'm not going to try and do anything apart from just kind of summarize it here. So, Mark is, without doubt, one of the recognized thought leaders in employer branding and recruitment marketing. He was once called the father of employer branding. He began speaking and writing about it and developing the field in the mid-1990s after attending the brand school at J. Walter Thompson Advertising, where he worked at the time. His approach today remains the same as it was then. The brands are essentially relationships. Employer brands are the relationships between organizations and employees, current, past, and potential. And the employer brand must align with, but is distinct from, the overall organizational brand. He's currently a consultant working with employers on their employer brands and recruitment marketing, doing business as M-Brand SF. And prior to that, Mark was Global Director of Employer Branding and Recruitment Marketing for Teradata, the global analytics and big data firm, where he developed the company's employer value proposition, its career websites and various microsites, and its social recruiting program. Prior to that, was in a similar role for Informatica, which is another analytics and big data firm in Silicon Valley. Before that, he worked for the recruitment marketing agency Bernard Hodes Group, working with clients such as General Mills, Apple, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Limited Brands, the Clorox Company, Bank of America, Cisco, ConocoPhillips, and many more, to discover, articulate, and communicate their employer brands. Mark lives where he is at the moment in Half Moon Bay in California, which is about 30 miles south of San Francisco on the Pacific coast. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning and good afternoon to you.
Thank you. So let's start with, why could employers be wasting 99% of their recruitment marketing budget?
Well, the short answer is that you spend a lot of money attracting people to get them to look at your jobs and then to apply to them. And obviously we know that not everyone who applies gets the job. And so you winnow it down from the people who apply to the people that get interviewed to the people that eventually get an offer and are hired. And what happens is let's say you have 100 applicants, the other 99 essentially get thrown away. And there's a huge investment in getting those people to raise their hand and say, I'm interested, I'd like to be a part of your organization. And then they're unsuccessful and they're essentially never heard from again. And I think that's a terrible waste because, first of all, a percentage of them, let's say 10 out of the 100, were good enough to interview. And let's say 4 of those were good enough to go to a personal interview and an extensive vetting process. So worst case, after you've made your hire, you have 3 other people who probably are a good fit and could have succeeded at your organization, but now they're gone. And most employers, in my experience, do very little or nothing to maintain the relationship that was developed during that attraction and interviewing process. So that's where the waste comes from. And the irony is, as you can tell just by looking at me, I can remember the days when applications were paper resumes that were either faxed or mailed to an employer, and then they went into giant, filing cabinets. And we all knew, no one, when they got a new rec was going to go, oh, let me go to the filing cabinet and see who's in there. So when electronic databases came along, we thought, oh, well, now it's very easy. You can just go in the database and find out, who's there that meets your qualifications. But the reality is people don't. And I think there are some cultural reasons. There's an old saying, an expert is the guy from out of town. It's always the new blood, the new person that people are looking for. And the reality is you already have those people in your database. They've already been through your process. They already have an affinity for you. They've said they want to work for you. So why not go to that first? And most employers don't do that.
Why do you think, apart from the kind of new blood and always looking for new, why do you think they don't go back to the database?
I think there are a number of reasons. One is there's probably a sense that, well, if they didn't succeed the first time, how good can they really be? There's also just the idea of let's see what's out there. A lot of employers are always looking to how can they steal the good people from their competitors. And certainly if you can get one of your competitors' top people, that's a good thing. It's going to help you. I think what is ignored there is that person going to be a good cultural fit for your organization? And, as you read off the list of employers that I've worked with over the years, I've come to the realization there's no good or bad cultures. There's just culture. So, maybe you're not the type of person who's going to thrive in an Amazon environment because that's highly competitive and that's very intense. Okay. Is Amazon a bad place? Well, not for the people at Amazon, evidently. They have pretty good scores on Glassdoor and things like that. So it's finding the right people for the right culture and the right skill set. And so I think the sense is, well, let's find out what's out there. And the other thing is, I don't think a lot of recruiters or sourcers are that well trained in going in and looking at what do we already have before they go look outside. It's just not what they think about doing. And I think it's part of it is simply is a matter of training and getting them to let's start first with who we have and then let's go outside. And as a former product marketer, the smart marketing companies look at their customer databases constantly, and they try to find out, okay, who are the customers who are loyal, who are buying high value items, who are, real advocates for the brand. And you want to work those people, and this sounds very cynical, but okay, it is. You want to work those people as hard as you can to maximize profit. And then customer acquisition, yeah, of course, you want to get more new customers. But marketeers have long since learned that getting new customers is expensive, and there's no guarantee. You may get a customer and find out that they're a real pain in the butt. They're constantly calling support and they're returning items and things like that. So I think recruitment marketers, recruitment people in recruiting and in sourcing need to start thinking like that. Let's see what we already have. Let's see if we can maximize that before we go outside.
Yeah, I think that, aside from the behavior of let's go in and look for net new, because, what we already have, kind of the assumption that what we already have isn't going to be good enough. Aside from that, one of the things that kind of we experience is that the data that's in the ATS is perceived as being really poor quality because it's kind of automatically out of date the minute that it kind of goes in there. Because if somebody has if somebody has applied or they've kind of engaged and been through part of a hiring process, then they're likely that they've moved somewhere anyway, so the data is going to be out of date. And there's nothing in the kind of the ATS technology that enables you to keep it up to date. Okay, So one of the things that we find is that when you bring that up to date, okay, when you bring it up to date, you find that the people that have been in there have actually gone and done some pretty remarkable things. And in the 2 years since since they might have since they might have applied. So there's gold in the ATS. There, the number of kind of software engineers that Dialog Semiconductor hired, from dead ATS data was phenomenal. And it was from a talent pool of 2,993 when we refreshed it, and then just had a simple kind of engagement, message, that led to kind of 15 hires in 6 weeks from dead data. So I think there's one side of things is the ability to keep the the data up to date, so that where they are and what people have gone to do, but also the getting over the perception that what's in there is, because it wasn't successful the first time, that it's not right, going forward.
Well, and I think that there is that. There are tools now that allow you to constantly scan the web and look at all of the people you have in your database and update their profiles. So if someone, say, applies for a job, doesn't get the job, applies for another job, does get that one, these tools will tell you, oh, Mark is no longer at XYZ Corp, he's moved over to ABC. And so that technology does exist, and so you can refresh it. But to your point, the other thing is, statistics here in the United States indicate that the average tenure of a professional is now 2.6 years. And so that's a very quick cycle for people to be turning around. So to your point, if someone is in your database who, let's say, applied 3 years ago, yeah, they probably did get another job, but they're probably looking again because they've done everything they can in that job and they're looking for a new challenge. I was actually at an HR meetup a couple of months ago here in Silicon Valley, and we were talking about this. And somebody said, well, in Silicon Valley, actually, the average tenure is 10 to 12 months. Now, I haven't seen the data to support that, but just personal experience tells me that people do move very quickly. And so just because you didn't hire them doesn't mean they've gone off and found another job that they're going to stay at for 10, 20 years. That's not the case. And that gets to the other point, I think, that people today still talk about the employer brand funnel, the attract, interest, interview, hire, and boom, you're done. You take it down to the hire event. And the problem with that model is people think, okay, once they're hired, we're done. And the challenge is, in today's social media world, actually, you're not done, because now that person is an employee, yes, there is that period of orientation and getting used to it, and the honeymoon, as we like to call it. Oh, it's my new job. I'm so excited. This is really cool. But the reality is, your employees are being subject to recruitment marketing messages all the time, either implicit or explicit. They might still be getting queries from recruiters on the one hand, but on the other hand, they're still seeing their friends through LinkedIn and Facebook and other platforms. Oh, Chris got a job at Google. Wow, I'd really like to work at Google. How can I do that? Oh, Pat got a job over at Apple. Man, Apple is cool. That new headquarters is really neat. How can I do that? So it's not like before we had social media, people weren't as connected as they are now. And so one of the things I tell clients is, you really need to think about employer branding not as a funnel, but as a loop. And it's a continuous process. And some people may groan and say, oh my gosh, now I got to do this all the time. And it's, well, yeah, you do. And actually, McKinsey published a study a few years ago where they basically said that the classic retail and brand funnel was dead. This is where I got the idea, by the way. I stole it from them. And they posited the idea of the loop. Because if you think about it, in today's world, very few people are brand loyal like they used to be. Yes, there are some people who are brand advocates and they will, I have to have my Starbucks or I have to have whatever. But that's becoming less and less common. People are always on the lookout for the next best thing. And for people in the Northern California and the San Francisco Bay Area, we had Pete's before there was Starbucks. And so there's the Pete's Starbucks war. And then along came Blue Bottle. And then came Phil's. And so everybody's got this, what's the latest and greatest thing? And a lot of that is through social media. And that's affecting your employees. And that's probably a reason why the tenure is as short as it is, because people are seeing opportunity all the time. And so the challenge for an employer is to make sure that not only are they sending out recruitment marketing messages that are, authentic to the employer brand, but they also need to communicate internally and keep reselling their own employees on how good they have it and why it's a great place to work. And that's why I'm a big advocate of, internal communications and recruitment marketing in most companies are distinct functions. And I think the closer together they can align themselves. In fact, I would say if they could get together and be a one function that thinks holistically about employees from outside to coming in to throughout that person's tenure to when they leave. Because once a person leaves, if it's on good terms, you want that person to say good things about you. Because if I'm applying for a job, and when we see this a lot on LinkedIn and other platforms, there's a job at XYZ Corp. See who you know there. Or, and it'll tell you people who are there and maybe even people who've recently left. So you're going to contact those people and say, what is it really like there? And you want that story to be consistent and positive. And so it's a continuous process, and people have to think about it in those terms.
I think one of the things is that we also, a lot of people talk about the fact that they think that the content that they have is not, to engage the people that they want to engage with. But one of the things that we experience is that when you're flying blind, when you're just kind of, posting and praying, or you're just, you don't have any visibility of how the people that you're trying to connect with and reach out to actually behave afterwards. What do they do? Do they go and look at this? That's the content do they engage with? So if you don't have any kind of visibility of any of that, essentially it's kind of quite a binary offer. It's like we have a role, we have an opportunity, we have a role that we're trying to fill, and kind of like a yes, no, please, because if you're going out to hundreds and hundreds of people and you want to, and you don't know what they're going to do, then it is a kind of yes, no. However, if you use our technology, because we can kind of track and then score, what people do. What do they go and read? What do they look at? Where do they go? Look at the main corporate site, look at the career site, look at stuff on LinkedIn, etc. You'd be able to see, our technology shows people that when people are actually looking at, the specific job descriptions, and they'll show you. So that means what it enables you to do is it enables you to kind of to talk about or share content which is more about the company, or more about the technology, or more about the actual things that the people that you're trying to engage with will be interested in, because they will if they're interested in, I think the people are interested in learning about the organization, so where's the company going, and what is it, what is its strategic vision, or where does it sit within the marketplace, and then what cool things is it doing with its products, whether it's tech or other FMCG or whatever the product says. What cool things is it doing with its products? So they're kind of looking, is this going to be a good place for me to work?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're interested in what would it be like to work there? And that comes a little bit more into the employer brand and the culture, and they're looking for content around those, and then they'll kind of go and say, hey, this looks good. I'd like to work there. I think I could do meaningful work there. And what are the roles that they have available right now? Sorry. If you can see all of that, then it shows you who are the kind of tiny 3 to 4% of people that are, really looking at your opportunities and focusing on them, and then but it also means that you can market your kind of organization rather than your jobs to them.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on a key point, which is, again, if you go back to my definition of the employer brand as a relationship, and the fact is, you're right. It's not a binary thing where it's, you want the job or don't you? You have to develop that relationship, and it can take some time, or sometimes there's an immediate fit. But the point is, having content that meets the candidate's expectations and wants is a very important step in building that relationship. I'll give an example from the retail world. One of Teradata's biggest clients is Nordstrom, which is a luxury retailer here in the United States. Their stores are very well known for being very high end. They have nice touches such as pianos playing in the lobbies, and they're really wonderful stores. But what they're most known for, and this has been going on for years, is their customer service. And part of that today is because they use software that essentially tracks everything a customer has ever done with Nordstrom. So when you walk in the store, they have a little iPad, and they can say, "Oh, Mr. McRae, good to see you again." And they know that you love to buy shoes there. And so they can say to you, we have a new line of athletic shoes. They're stylish. You can wear them, casually in social events, or you can use them to go running or biking or whatever you want to do. Now you're going to say, wow, that's really cool. They know me, and they're helping me find what I've come here to find. That's the key to building a relationship, as opposed to if you walk into another retailer and there's a big sign that says shoes, and it's like, oh, it's over there, and now you've got to go find what you're looking for. Nordstrom helps you do that. That's how they build the relationship. The same thing is true in the scenario you just devised of, if I can give, and let's stick with high tech because that's what I know best, if I can give that engineer information that he or she is interested in, a technology that they're working on, a general area that they want to learn more about that you're involved in, that's going to interest them. And then if you keep feeding them that, that's how you begin to develop that relationship. And now people think like, well, they know you a little better than other employers. And so they're more likely to think about you as a place to work, as opposed to the top 10 that come to mind. And, I named a bunch of them earlier. And the reality is there a job for me at Google? Google, if you're watching, please tell me there is. But seriously, it's a lot of employers who have really great opportunities aren't top of mind. So how do you do that? You begin to build that relationship with content. Now, you pose the question, how do you find the content? And, the reality is it's probably there in white papers that your company's already publishing for customers, case studies. In the case of both Informatica and Teradata, those are companies that don't have very high brand awareness. And so one of the things I did with the social media program was to publish content about big data analytics, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. And of course, it was all curated to make sure it didn't sing the praises of our competitors, but it was talking about how cool those fields are. And one of the things I learned when I was at HOTUS Group and working with clients there is if you put in what I call human interest stories about how the company's products or services are helping people solve real problems, those get the highest viewing and the most engagement from people. And so when you're talking about analytics or big data, when you see articles that say artificial intelligence is helping clinicians diagnose stroke earlier and predict it. Okay. Now, stroke is something that a lot of people know someone in their family or their friends. And so it's something of interest to them. Now, if they also happen to be in the artificial intelligence field, the message is also you could be using your talents to help solve a very real problem for a lot of people. And there's lots of content about that. So let's say you're a trucking firm. Now, trucking isn't very glamorous, to a lot of people, but it's very vital. It's the backbone of logistics, at least in the United States. And so if you have stories about how trucking firms are using advanced technologies like artificial intelligence or Internet of Things in order to manage their fleets better and to make the driver's job less strenuous and less arduous. Okay, the message to the general public is XYZ trucking is really great. Look how they're investing in the future of the industry. And for the drivers, it's like, wow, that's really cool. I have tools available to me at XYZ that I don't at my current employer or as an independent owner operator, I can't afford. So the idea is to go find that content, and it's out there on the web. You can just set up Google alerts for all the main topics in your industry, and every day in your mailbox, you're going to get a ton of content. You go through it very quickly, you learn how to scan it very quickly, and then push that out, and then have a hashtag. Like at Teradata, we had Teradata careers. At Informatica, we had Infa careers. And now people are seeing this and they're like, oh, what's that? And that leads them to you. And now all of a sudden you're starting a relationship.
Yeah, and I think the a lot of the content that candidates will be interested in is being developed and published by corporate marketing around the stuff that they're doing to promote the company to the customers.
Right.
And so there's but what you need is so we quite often have a debate around, is content king or, but I would argue that actually having the kind of technology infrastructure in place that enables you to, maximize the investment that you make in content, is more important first. If you need to be able to see how your content is driving engagement, what is what the people that engage with it, who then go on and learn about the company and then look at the jobs, get prioritized with real-time alerts for follow-up, which makes the whole kind of recruitment cycle so much more effective. Mm-hmm. And then you can also see which kind of content works. So for example, with Specsavers, they were able to make 55% more hires by talking to 97% less people. Mm-hmm. So in one situation, they were talking about a talent pool. The recruiters only had to focus on 3% of their talent pool because they were the ones that were most engaged and were actually looking at the jobs. They're the ones they prioritized to follow up. So you get a huge amount of kind of efficiency and productivity. Get rid of all the cold calling. Understand which content works. So that you can look to share more of that. You can also understand, by understanding what stage of interest people have had, you can work out whether it's a technology story that you want to focus on sharing stuff about the company or about the product, or if it's more of a cultural type story. So, One of the if if you were to say, okay, what were the things that you would do to stop kind of employers wasting 99% of their recruitment, marketing budget? What are the things that you would recommend that they do to, to stop wasting any of it?
Well, I think you hit on it just now. Is I think you need to have the tools and the ability to understand what messages are resonating with your audience, and then it's not a simple. This message is going to resonate with everyone. That's not the case. I mean, at Teradata, we were hiring consultants, salespeople, data scientists, DevOps engineers. All of those groups had different interests. And so the challenge is finding out which resonates with each one. And then, of course, having the tools, and your product certainly does that, having the tools to see how they work with the various audiences and be able to segment the audiences. Because again, one size does not fit all. Now, if you have a story about, oh, we're rebranding ourselves, or, we just bought this company, yes, that can go out to everybody because it's a general message of we're growing, we're changing, we're transforming ourselves. That's a universal message. But you have to have content that addresses the concerns of each of your different audiences. And, that sounds very daunting and very challenging, and it's not easy, I'll be the first to admit. But the payoff, to your point, the Specsavers example is an excellent one. They don't need to talk to 10,000 people. They can talk to 200, and they're going to find all the talent they need in that 200, because that 200 know that, first of all, Specsavers has what they're looking for, and they're beginning to develop that relationship with them. They're sending them content that isn't spam. It's content that they look forward to. And this is not something that is new with technology. Years ago, Hughes Missile Systems, which was a missile company in Arizona, had a print campaign in Scientific American. And every month they would publish a full page of type, no illustrations, nothing like that. And they were simple bullet points about all the technologies and projects they were working on. And it was probably the most read and most successful ad in Scientific American, because it had the content that the audience of Scientific American was looking for. And from a recruitment standpoint, I mean, it generated a lot of leads. So if you can, using Candidate ID or whatever tool, understand what your audience is looking for and deliver that to them, that's how you build that relationship. And again, as we've been talking about, it's not like you've got to generate it from scratch. You can find existing content within the organization. And I'll be the first to admit, not everything that the company or organization, government agency, whatever it is generating is appropriate for recruiting. Both Teradata and Informatica have huge YouTube libraries, but 90% of them are hour-long discussions about the intricacies of their software. That can be deadly boring. So, it's finding that 3-minute, 2-minute, 30-second clip that you can push out there that says something about what you're doing. And I think it was James Ellis in his webinar he did with you talked about this. You don't need to tell the whole story up front. You just need to tease people and get them to pay attention and go, oh, what's that? That's interesting. And that's one of the beauties of the web, is it allows people to drill down as deep as they want to go in looking at content. So if you can give them that little taste of what you're doing, that makes them go, wow, that's really cool. That's something I'd like to be a part of. I want to learn more about that. And then you can point them to resources within your careers website or even your corporate website that say, oh, you can read the full white paper here. Oh, you can read more about the technology here. Oh, you can see a video of our chief technology officer presenting this at a conference. Now it's my decision as a visitor to say, yeah, I'd like to invest 30 minutes to watch that presentation because I'm going to learn something from it. So it's thinking about that, way of drawing people in. It's almost like a capillary effect. If you remember your chemistry from high school, it's getting them in and then pulling them along, and that's what the content can do. And again, with Candidate ID, I think one of the cool things that advertisers and recruitment marketers didn't have before was, we'd put a message out there and we'd get a very crude indicator of how effective it was. Oh, we got a lot more applications after we ran that story. Okay, let's do more stories like that. Okay, but now we can see, oh, for this cluster of people over here, they really want to hear about this technology. So let's feed them that information. And this cluster over here really want to know about how we're making money. What's our business model? Okay, let's feed them that content. And again, those are two topics that in most organizations, the content's already there. It's just finding it. And then you may have to edit it or adapt it to your use, but it's there for you to take and use. Now, the other thing we haven't talked about is the pure play recruitment content, such as benefits, culture, diversity and inclusion, those kinds of issues. And that's where you are going to have to create content. But, it's not like you have to do everything at once. If you're just starting out, what you want to do, as I had to at both Informatica and Teradata, if you're just starting out, what you want to do is create awareness about yourself as an employer in your space and make sure that people know you're there. And then using a tool like Candidate ID, you can see which messages are resonating most. So you can begin to focus on generating that kind of content. And then most of the data I've seen, both internally at Informatica and Teradata and when I was at HOTUS from my clients, is that most people come to you because of a specific job opportunity. They saw a job posting somewhere. They saw something about you're hiring for DevOps engineers in San Diego. Okay, so they'll go to the job description and excuse me, they'll read it and hopefully they'll apply. And what we know from the data is that once they apply, if they get positive feedback from the employer, hey, we want to do a phone screen. We want to know more about you. Now the candidate goes, oh, this is serious. They're interested in me. I better know what I'm getting into. Now they'll come back to your careers website or whatever resources you have to find out what are the benefits. What is the culture like? Who are these people? And you may have specific needs. Maybe you're a woman and it's a technology company. Okay, a very real concern. Is it a woman-friendly technology company? Do women rise in this organization? Do they get senior positions? And so that's when they're coming back to look for that very specific content. And you need to be monitoring your career website analytics very closely to see, are the people coming back and what are they doing? And then build that content out.
When you're flying blind, okay, and you don't have any visibility of whether people are actually, looking at deep in the careers and the career site around, culture and comps and benefits and specific job opportunities. When you don't have any visibility of that at all, what you've really kind of got to do is force people to apply. They've got to apply, or they have to, respond to a reach out message, whether it's on LinkedIn or email or whatever, that says, yes, I'd like to talk. However, when you've got visibility of the fact that they've been, looking at the specific opportunities, etc., all that you need them to do is to kind of, sign up to stay in touch for future alerts, or, join the network, join the talent community or whatever it might be. It's a much kind of softer ask, if you like. And so I'm interested in kind of how would you change if you imagined that you had complete visibility. You weren't flying blind. You had complete visibility of what everybody was doing. How would you change your approach?
Well, I think the data would inform how you make those changes. And you spoke about talent communities, and I think that again gets back to that wasting of money, because I've seen way too many employers who've created talent communities and then do nothing with them. They don't push out any content, or if they do push out content, it's generic and it doesn't meet the specific needs. So now that you have these communities, and in many cases, what you'll do is you'll ask the candidate to self-select, oh, join our talent communities. Pick one of these from this menu that you'd like to be a part of. And we all know none of them are a perfect fit, but you'll pick the one closest to what you want to learn more about. Okay, you've basically said, please tell me more about R&D engineering. Okay, so you owe it to them. If you're going to create this relationship and fulfill their expectations, you need to have a program, an editorial calendar, to say, we're going to send the people in the R&D community information about work that we're doing in R&D on a regular basis. Excuse me. So I think the change is paying very close attention to that audience and watching to see what they want, and then basically giving it to them. And again, you can pull it from different sources. But I think, and your own data support this, and I've seen this with other employers, when it's done right, you're not talking about post and pray anymore. You're not talking about running ads on job boards, or even LinkedIn and Glassdoor, okay, which are not bad. I mean, they all have their place, and they're worthwhile, but they're also expensive. And so if now you have this audience that you've built with ads on LinkedIn and Glassdoor and other places, now they're in your community, and so they're almost a captive audience. You just have to do your part and give them the content they're interested in. And then you also owe it to yourself, now that you have this community and you've started to create content for them, is to have your recruiters and sourcers, as a first step, they get a new rec, rather than go outside, they need to go into the communities and see, oh, are there any people who meet this spec? And now you're basically recycling, which is probably too negative a term, but basically you're not having to invest in capturing those names anymore. You already have them. So you're just bringing them to the fore. And the reality is, maybe you don't have the person in there that you want. So you do need to go externally. Okay, but at least start there, because the odds are you will find someone, and you can, repurpose them for another opportunity, and they're going to go on, and, now you can continue to do that over and over, rather than having to go outside, because, that becomes very expensive. And again, it goes back to what retailers and marketeers have known for years. Your best customers are your current customers. They're the people who come back. They will repeat buy. They will respond to your upsell promotions. Those are the people you want. Finding new customers, finding new candidates is expensive, and you're basically rolling the dice. You don't know how it's going to work out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And our experience completely kind of stacks that up. But even I think if you think about, so that's kind of outbound and like prioritizing, who is it that you're going to zero in on, which we would call kind of the difference between spear fishing and net fishing. If you can really identify the ones that are really engaged with your company, been reading, and they're also a really good fit, then you prioritize that tiny little group. We call it spearfishing. But what you can also do is for people that have come inbound. Okay, so they've come in as as a result of your recruitment marketing activity. Posting on jobs on job boards and advertising, etc. And I think it's a very common practice now where people will it's so easy to apply. They'll apply to lots of different places. So if you're able to tell the difference between people that have applied and done a lot of research around your company, they've really looked at you, they've studied Teradata a lot. If you can tell that, and they look a good fit, in terms of the criteria you're looking for, then prioritize those as well.
Absolutely.
Rather than people that have just all they've done is kind of apply but not done anything else.
Right. You absolutely, and that's, quite frankly, it's one of the things that most excites me about Candidate ID is that ability to basically have a heat map and show who are the people who are most interested and most ready for your message. I mean, that didn't exist before. And I think that's pure gold, because to your point, I'm not guessing about what people want to know. They're telling me by their behaviors. They keep clicking on these types of posts. Okay, that means they want to hear more about that. Let's give them that. And again, it goes back to that's how you build a relationship. If someone says, I want to know more about your R&D process, how do you do it? What are you looking at? And if you can feed that to them, that's going to get them excited about you, as opposed to just constantly trying to sell them stuff. And I think we've all had that experience. Virtually everyone on this call today has shopped online. And we get frustrated when, A, we get spammed, people trying to sell us stuff we're never, ever going to buy. Or B, this is my own pet peeve, I'll look for something online, I'll find it, I'll buy it, and then I keep getting ads for weeks after. Oh, you want to buy this? You want to buy this? I already bought it. Okay, leave me alone. And what that experience is telling me is you don't really know me. Your own record should tell you. And this happened to me with a online retailer whose name is like a big river, where I bought something from them. And for weeks afterwards, they're trying to sell me the same item. And I'm like, come on, have your databases talk to each other. You should see, I already bought it. Okay. Now, if you sent me a message and said, what did you think about it? How did it work for you? Would you recommend it to others? Okay, I can accept that. But asking me to buy it over and over and over again, now that's just poor practice.
If you think about your kind of experience at Teradata and the other organizations that you've worked with, we quite, I think, so people like the idea of having, so we have let's take DevOps, we have a pool of DevOps people. They could be people that are in the database already, and then you could be kind of sourcing, kind of trying to source net new. You might be advertising for opportunities, etc. So you're doing all these things to kind of build your talent pool with a view to hiring the best person. Our kind of perspective is that that pool only really becomes like a pipeline if you can understand where people are, in their stage of interest. So are they hot? Are they warm? Or are they still cold? They've done nothing. Okay, and that's a fairly simple thing to do, because all you need is the technology to show it. It will show you. But people think of, I think people think that the idea of talent pipelines is kind of quite difficult because they require a lot of work. They need to be kind of nurtured and managed and stuff pushed out to them all the time, which I don't think is true. You can, if you have a big requirement for DevOps people right now, you can of course work that pipeline very, very hard. Okay, but if you don't, then you can just periodically share some interesting content whenever the organization kind of develops or publishes it. What's your kind of view on how, based on your experience of, Teradata, exactly what's the kind of cadence or frequency of kind of communication that you should look for to kind of stay in touch and develop the relationship, and light touch, or what's your view?
Well, I think that to your point about people thinking it's too much work, I think the reason for that is they don't plan their work. So I think the key is to have, and this is an old-fashioned tactic, but it really works, is to have an editorial calendar for each of your groups that you're going after. And you map out month by month, week by week, what you're going to be sending them. And you can use holidays as a tent pole to wrap content around. You can use trade shows or big conferences. If you know that the company is going to be releasing a new product, say in August, okay, you can say, okay, in August, we're going to talk about the new platform that we're releasing. And, we're going to send the technical information to the engineers. We're going to send the sales potential to the salespeople. We're going to send the use cases to the consultants. So it's planning out your work. And, when I worked with Cisco, they had a really great saying. It was go slow to go fast. And what they meant was plan your work out very carefully. And then once you do it, execute like lightning. So, that allows you to do that because you don't have to think about what are we going to talk about this month? Where are we going to get that content? You've already thought about what you're going to say, and you've already identified sources for the content. Now, you may need to create some of it. Let's say in the case of videos, if you want to get, interviews with hiring managers or employees, okay, how are you going to do that? And how are you going to do it on a limited budget? And maybe you're a global company like Teradata. You got people in 44 countries around the world. How are you going to get videos from all of those places so that nobody feels left out? Okay, you think through those problems in advance, you map it out, and then you execute on it. And you tell people, okay, I want that video next week, Tuesday, and just get me the video, make it no less or no more than 3 minutes. We'll take care of editing it down for you. And so it's planning your work and then working your plan. And it sounds old-fashioned, but it really is true. And the technology today allows you to do so much more of it and to do it much more precisely. So to your point, we can identify the segments, and that's the key to any relationship program, is identifying your segments, understanding what they want to hear or see or know, and then giving it to them, and then watching how they respond. And there are going to be people who respond very positively, and there are people who are going to basically ignore it. And looking forward to the future, wouldn't it be really cool if you could take your community and introduce them to each other and have forums and have opportunities for them to interact with each other as well as your own people? I think that's something that people would really enjoy. I'm a big fan of motorsports, and I belong to an online group on Facebook, and we get into some really interesting discussions about cars and racing and all that kind of thing. I look forward to going into that forum. I can't wait in the evening to sit down and say, okay, what's going on? If you could create that in your talent communities where the people are like, oh, I really want to hear what people have to say about this new development, or I want to know what they think about such and such company has decided to drop that line of business. That would be a really vigorous and vital community. And people would come to want to be a part of it. They'd want to be affiliated with you just so they could participate in those conversations. That's probably a little ways off, but I think that's something to think about for the future. And again, the only way you're going to know how to create a community like that is to know what interests the people in that community and to deliver that content to them.
Brilliant. Well, hey, look, Mark, we've only got like a few minutes left. Is there any other points that you wanted to cover, or?
I think the main takeaway, and this is what I tell my clients, is there's a lot of discussion about employer branding, and there are more and more definitions popping up every day. And I still believe that brands are all about relationships. And if you think of it in that context, all of a sudden it begins to make sense. So the other thing that I point out is the employer brand is the relationship of the organization with its employees. And employees are defined as current employees, former employees, and potential employees. And a lot of people say, well, isn't that everybody in the world? And if you're like Walmart or some large global employer, yeah, potentially it could be. But when you think about it, you have the most intimate relationship with your current employees. They know in great detail what it's like to work for you. And so you need to monitor that very closely and make sure that what you're saying externally is authentic to their experience. But you can't forget about your past employees. And hopefully most of them leave on good terms. They found another opportunity, they moved, they decided to go back to school, what have you. You want to maintain a relationship with them because, again, people are going to go to them. If they don't know anybody currently working at your organization, they're going to go to people who used to work there to find out what it's really like. And with social media today, they can find them in 2 minutes. So you want to make sure your former employees are saying good things about you. So you need to maintain a relationship with them. And then your potential employees, your candidates, they have the most tenuous relationship with you. And so if you think about it, your current employees are like your family. You see them every day. They know you really well. They know not to talk to you before you've had your coffee, all those kinds of things. Your past employees are maybe people you went to school with or people you used to work with. They know you pretty well because they spend a lot of time with you. But, you need to catch up from time to time if you want to maintain the relationship. Your potential employees are like people you meet all the time, but don't have a close relationship with. Think about the person at your grocery store who handles the produce department. You probably don't even know that person's name, but you know them by sight and they know you because you're in there every week. Now, you may have a relationship with them in that person knows that, you like this kind of vegetable or you're always looking for this kind of fruit. And he or she wants to help you find that because obviously that means you're going to come back more often, you're going to buy more stuff. You, on the other hand, want to stay on the good side of that greengrocer because you want to make sure you get the best produce and you want to be tipped off. Oh, I don't have cherries today, but we got a shipment coming in tomorrow. So you should come back tomorrow. Okay, the same thing is true with your potential employees. You don't know them that well, but you should know them well enough to understand what are they looking for, how can you provide that, and then hopefully you can pull them along to create a stronger relationship as a candidate and then as an employee. And if you think about it as a relationship, then the other thing is we all know relationships can be very difficult. And they require work. You have to work at them in order for them to continue to thrive. And the same thing is true. You have to think about all the touch points between your organization and your employees, and then make sure they're consistent and that they're positive. Do all that and you'll be fine.
Hey, well, look, that's a brilliant place to finish. And thanks so much for joining us this morning with you or this afternoon here in the UK. It's been great chatting to you. We share the link to the on-demand version with everybody that had signed up. And I look forward to continue the conversation and we'll do a follow-up one in a bit. It'd be great.
It'd be great. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.